Hello Fleet, and welcome back to another Monday Rules episode. Now, before I get started today, I would first like to say welcome to the many new subscribers that have joined us ever since I made it onto one of those jingles videos, which was fantastic. So for those of you who are new here, the Monday Rules videos are videos I put out every Monday where I issue a challenge for the week, and then you can enter them by following the instructions in the video description below. You can send me a replay, and of course, if you end up winning, I will send you some doubloons. So anyways, let's announce last week's winner, which was the Pyromania Challenge. Yep, last week I was in the mood for some fire to keep me cozy, and of course, I wanted things to burn. So our winner was Quinzer, who did it in... Is anybody surprised by the fact that Quinzer won this in a Mogami? Last week when I issued the challenge, I was like, I'm pretty sure the winning entry is going to be a Mogami. Not only was it going to be in a Mogami, I'm pretty sure it's going to be in that 155 setup. And boy, was I correct. I mean, there were some other entries as well. Actually, let me talk about those. I think the next highest fire damage were Murmansk's. Yeah, is anybody surprised by that either? I mean, both of these ships are like the quintessential fire ships. I mean, I was expecting kind of to see a Cleveland in there, but there were some Clevelands, but they were a little bit further back. There was, however, one entry that had even more fire damage than Quinzer. Yep, somebody had sent in a replay of a Ranger doing 136,000 fire damage. Wow. In a Ranger of all things. I mean, that was incredible in terms of damage. However, the entry is invalid because that replay had been taken place back in September. And you know how the challenges work is you have to have done it during the week of the challenge. You can't go back to sort of past results. So unfortunately, that replay was ruled out in terms of eligibility. So Quinzer, you definitely have the next highest amount of fire damage. Of course, we'll see that at the end. The one good thing for Quinzer, I think, in this particular battle is that this is a higher tier battle. This is actually a tier 10 battle. As you can see, there's a Yamato over there. And the reason why that's great is because bigger the battleship, larger the HP pool, the more damage per tick you do with fire. So a Yamato is going to burn quite a lot. And if you can get a Yamato on fire, there's a lot of damage to be had there. It also helps that the Yamato can repair itself a significant chunk of HP, so you can collect even more damage on just one ship. And as you can see, if you look at the map right now, Quinzer's pretty much by himself. There was one other cruiser that went all the way over to the one line, got sunk already. So Quinzer's pretty much holding off these ships by himself. And these battleships are pushing, but not pushing as a coordinated team, and also not pushing that hard because they'd come under fire. And remember, the one thing I talked about during the gunboat videos is that battleships really don't like to be on fire. In fact, a lot of ships don't like to be on fire, but especially battleships. So when they do get set on fire, battleships have a tendency of just turning around and running away as quickly as possible. But the Mogami has one interesting little thing up its sleeve. It's got advanced firing training, and on the 155s, with that particular skill, the Mogami is going to continue to be able to rain high explosive shells at you at close to 18 kilometers. That's right, no matter how hard you try to run away from this thing, good luck. Anyhow, there is a cruiser. Now, cruisers are interesting when you're in a Mogami with the 6.1s. After the sort of the armor thing has been implemented and you know the HE got buffed in a certain way, with the 6.1s, when you're going up against cruisers, it's just better to fire high explosive at them. And that's because at the higher tiers, around tier 8, tier 9, so on and so forth, the armor piercing, with the 6.1 inch armor piercing, if the enemy ship is a little bit angled, you might not get a lot of penetrating hits. And citadels, well, that's even more rare when the enemy is actually angled. However, since HE kind of, ignores armor, and they can also set fires, which are extremely damaging, and if you can fire a lot of them, you might as well just continue firing high explosive. Because why not, right? Finally, Quinzer does actually get some of his battleships to come over and help out. And this is great. This is great when you're in a Mogami slinging HE, because when the enemy battleships are too preoccupied with your battleships, it just gives you total freedom to rain down as many HE shells as possible. By the way, that Yamato absolutely hates his life. And that's because Quinzer puts him on fire pretty much from now until the end of the battle, and he just burns and burns and burns and burns, and he just doesn't want to fight. The Yamato, however, does make one misplay in this situation, and the misplay came because the Yamato repaired a single fire. And you're like, wait, what? When you're still within range of an HE slinging Mogami, and the Mogami manages to set one fire on your Yamato, do not put that fire out. Because if you put that fire out, and the Mogami keeps firing at you and sets you on fire again, you're gonna burn for the full duration of that next fire. And if the Mogami keeps firing and manages to set multiple fires, well then, good luck, because that's gonna really hurt. So of course you're gonna ask, well, as a battleship, what can I do? Well, there's no perfect answer. Ideally, what I would say is let that one fire burn until you see a second fire pop up, and then use the repair kit. Or have that one fire burn and seek the nearest kind of cover, whether that be an island or something that you can get behind so that the cruiser can't get shots in on you. Probably the best ideas. Other than that, just, you know, if you don't have any of those situations available or whatnot, then just pray that the cruiser just stops shooting at you and decides to shoot for something else. I know, that's terrible advice. Oh my goodness. Anyhow, Quinzer does eventually change his focus onto the turrets, and of course shoots the turrets up a little bit while the Yamato retreats. So we're going to skip forward a little bit to sort of show you where Quinzer re-engages the Yamato and just how much damage fire can really do. So a little bit later on, after the turrets have been sunk, Quinzer goes back to shooting at this Yamato. This Yamato, I can't fault him. That's the thing. I can't fault the Yamato for not wanting to get burned to the waterline by a Mogami. But on the flip side, I also think the Yamato was a little bit too passive. The Yamato, which initially, if you remember a little bit earlier on, was closer to the islands around the sort of the 3-4 lines, where the Yamato could have taken cover, instead decided to go for the open ocean, because once you go to the open ocean, however, you just have no cover. So a Mogami that wants to burn you is going to have free reign to do so. So I do think that the Yamato pretty much misplayed the situation. And also, if you look at the way the enemy team had spread out, that I think was another big problem, because they'd spread out so much that they couldn't concentrate their firepower in any one place or against any one target. And so Quinzer's team pretty much is going to be able to have freedom to just pick apart their team. If you look at the total number of ships that the enemy team had, they weren't really that outnumbered compared to Quinzer's team, because Quinzer had a Mogami and 3 battleships. The enemy team had a Tirpitz, a Yamato, and an Amagi, along with earlier an Otago and now a Baltimore. So the enemy team and Quinzer's team in terms of numbers weren't really that far apart. However, by misplaying the situation, the enemy team is granting Quinzer's team these multiple 4-on-1, 3-on-1 situations, which Quinzer's team takes full advantage of. Alright, so let's go back to this Yamato for a second. And the Yamato is still running away. And I was watching this Yamato and I was all of a sudden reminded of psychology. And I was like, hold on a second, there's something that's very interesting to talk about here. In psychology, there's this thing called flight or fight. So it's your brain's decision making on whether you want to run away from something or whether you want to stay and actually fight. Now, in World of Warships, this actually is something that you will see quite often. You'll see a ship start retreating. It'll start running away. And what they'll do is they'll keep running away until they completely get out of fire. So until the person reverts to a sense of security before they'll reevaluate what they want to do, whether they want to continue running or whether they want to fight. And this creates a very interesting mindset, because it's very hard to break. Once you've decided that you want to run, a lot of people just keep running. And it's very hard for them to change that mindset. For the people who are chasing, it's very easy, because it's just, oh yes, look, there's somebody who's running away, let's keep chasing, let's keep fighting. But what can be very interesting is if the Yamato had all of a sudden decided to throw this thing onto its head. I've done this in battle, where I was the one running away, and then for just that moment of realization, hold on a second, I'm continuing to run away, what am I doing? I will turn around and I will go on the offensive. Even if the odds seem a little bit kind of crazy, I'll go on the offensive. I'll turn around and I'll re-engage the enemy team. And it's very, very interesting, because immediately what that does is it forces the ships that were chasing you to all of a sudden reevaluate their own priorities. Are we going to stay and fight, or are we going to run away? And sometimes what ends up happening is that when you go on the offensive and you can land, maybe 1 or 2 good hits, you might actually force the enemy team to start turning away and engaging in their own flight response. So that's actually really cool. But in this case, for this Yamato, just by continuing to run away, nothing. Just continues to get chased, continues to get pummeled, and continues to get burned. And of course, by this time, Quinzer had already gotten a Wither badge, which is at least 60,000 damage. And that Yamato, even though it popped its repair kit, and mind you, the Yamato repairs a phenomenal amount of HP per second, in the range, I think 700 plus HP per second. And you can see that even with the repair kit going, the fires are doing just so much damage, and the Yamato basically gets pummeled to death. So let's take a look at the final results screen, because of course the Yamato does eventually get sunk and Quinzer's team does win the battle. So let's take a look at the results screen to see how much damage Quinzer was able to do. Well, Quinzer managed 269 hits with high explosive, doing 62,083 damage with HE, but since we're not caring about HE damage, let's move on to the fire damage, because that's what matters. 14 fires, dealing 85,802 damage. Holy fires. Anyways, Quinzer, congratulations on winning Monday Rules Challenge number 10. I'll be sending some doubloons your way. And this week's Challenge 11 focuses on the strong Soviet destroyers that have made their appearance in the game. What I want you to do is play the Tier 3 Soviet destroyer, the Derzki, use its many torpedoes to do as much torpedo and flooding damage as possible. Most damage wins, no other restrictions. And of course, one last thing, which is if you've got a creative challenge starting this week, you can suggest things in the comment section below. And what's going to happen is that during next week's Monday Rules video, I will go through the comments, I will pick a challenge, and I will issue it to the community. Don't worry, I'm still buying all the prizes. Anyways, folks, I hope you have fun with challenge number 11, and also have some fun creating some new challenges for the community as a whole. So take care, and remember folks, Monday rules.